All right, everybody. Again, welcome. I hope you had a great holiday. Welcome to the first meeting of 2023. And boy, has it been a off season. Does anybody in this room are fully convinced that Carlos Correa is going to quit packing and move into some other city? Is he a twin? Are we sure? Well, he signed the contract. Okay. Another friend. Well, before we get started, we have a lot of people here. I want to welcome those who've never been here before, or like a few people. Okay. Like a few people, maybe you're members and you haven't been here since pre-COVID, right? So everybody's kind of get back to the swing of things. First off, we had new members this month, thanks to Chris, Derek Allen from Nacogdoches, Alex Blair from Clarendon Hills, Illinois, Nick Clark. Nick is here with Marina, right? And if you don't know Nick and Marina, Gary, you remember? That's right, Gary's wife. So, Paula Swain, welcome back. Big fan of Tony Adams. I remember that. She said, and I quote, Tony Adams is a rock star. All right, if you don't know who Tony Adams is, I'll remind you in a second. Larry, Dierker, your wife? Linda? Dale Fisher. Hello, Dale. You're a guest of John Lloyd. The last time Dale was here, Tal Smith was the center of attention because it was the arbitration meeting. How many years ago was that? Not two. That was a couple. It was fun. Grant, want to tell us who your guests are? Grant Sovereign? I'm sorry.
My daughter Erin and her boyfriend Joseph. And
great name.
Erin's been here several times, just first time.
All right. Thank you, Grant. Thank you. And Bob, would you like to let us know who your guest is? All right, everybody. Just to let you all know, all guests and people who haven't been here for a while, guess what? Your job for next month is to come back. Okay? Hopefully you have a little fun tonight. And we have a great guest, two great presentations, I believe. So it should be a fun night. And again, those of you on Zoom, welcome. All right. A couple of really important things. Please go to the SABR website and verify your information. Verify your address, your phone number. Because if you don't verify your address, phone number, you might not get publications or emails, stuff like that. And believe it or not, the stuff SABR sends out is very interesting, kind of important. If you don't have your correct address, you don't get the periodical, right? Particularly, they send out one right before the SABR convention, right? Which I want you all to make sure that you have your address up to date so that everybody gets the SABR publication right before the convention, because yours truly has been chosen to write an article about Billy Sunday and the Chicago White Sox. I got the notification last month, Celia Tan. So if you don't know who Billy Sunday is, he was a Chicago White Sox pitcher, but he's best known for in the early 20th century as America's favorite evangelist. Okay, or America's most popular evangelist. Okay, so stay tuned. Right? So that's what I'm going to be doing. So make sure your information is up to date. Check your emails online. If you're not getting emails from me, check your spam box. Okay, Marcia and I had a good conversation a little while ago. Sorry. Not getting emails from me. They're not going to spam. Well, hey, maybe we'll try to figure something out. Okay. Astros Fan Fest is January 21st, this Saturday. Here in a minute, I'm going to pass around a piece of paper. We're looking for volunteers. people to help work at our SABR booth. And right now, I'm going to let Bob talk a little bit about FanFest and what the chapter is going to do. So go ahead, Bob.
FanFest is Saturday. Going to run from 10 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The Astros are expecting at least 10,000 people to attend. It's awesome. We've participated in FanFest for a number of years. We have our own table. We have a lot of fun. Try to encourage folks to know something about SABR. Pass out baseball cards to all the young people, and we get a lot of attention. We'd like to have some volunteers, being that the table's open from 10 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. We'd like 3 people at all times, like from 10 noon to the 4. So we're looking for volunteers. Now the good news is, if you go to FanFest as a regular person, you got paid. Hold on.
Right, let's do it.
Well, come work for us. Great. The only thing is, I need to be there so I can get your name on the patch list. Special entrance for volunteers. So you know. Especially you. So anyway, we need to know which people. I know there are a bunch of volunteers last year. I can name you. Or others. We'll have a list of people who want to volunteer now.
Here, you want me to pass this around, Bob?
Or you got it. Sample it. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah, which
the preferred time is going to work out. It's fun, all kinds of baseball activities, batting practice, fishing, warm-up sound, autographs, presentations. Going to announce the new members of the Astros Hall of Fame bar on Saturday. So it's a fun activity. Any questions?
Any questions for Bob?
Yes.
That's why we're signing people up as they come up. Yes, we will. And Mike suggested that we have a prize. I think he's already got the prize worked out.
Now, Santa Claus, Larry Santa Claus, but Larry's not gonna be there, so it'll be the only, Larry, Dierker autograph ball available each time. That would. Yeah. Well, and then they have to pick it up here.
Oh. There you go, Mike.
Bob, say they're expecting over 10,000. That's what we've had in years past. And that's a pretty good number to shuffle through in 6 hours. But there's lots of activities, lots of fun, and the weather's supposed to be decent. A couple of years ago, it was really cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Pass the sheet around, let us know if you would like to.
You know, the Astro parking lots, are they free?
Astro parking lots are free. No parking fees, and Astro parking lots.
No parking fee. That's good. Okay. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. All right. Tony, we have a newsletter coming up in the next couple of months. Next month, month after. Okay, should be very exciting. Already got a couple of article submissions already.
Seems like it could be spring training.
Spring trade.
Spring term.
Okay.
You laugh.
Okay.
All contributions are.
Okay. Yeah, all contributions are received with gratitude, like Tony said.
I'll do an article on Kim and Eddie on the experience I had at the Afterdown. Our guest doesn't include it. I can do a smaller presentation.
Okay, Mike's gonna contribute something about Caminetti. Go great with meeting next month. So
You don't have it.
yeah, Bob. Oh, that your food. Okay, never mind. All right, real quickly. Last month we had a great meeting Tony Adams. If you don't know that name, sign-stealing-scandal.com, trash can bangs. He was
Have a classic pizza, slice of lime, and 2 Caesars. I don't know. Missing challenge. Is anyone missing a side Caesar? And anyone missing a classic? Okay. Thank you.
no problem. But if you want to see his work, sign-stealing-scandal.com. He had a great presentation. He showed us how he listened to the bangs of the trash can. It's a fascinating technical meeting. We also heard from David Vaught, professor of history at Texas A&M. He wrote a great book, recently came out about Gaylord Parrott called Spitter. Okay. Last weekend, a few of us went to the annual Bill Gilbert winter meeting out there in San Marcos at Texas State, put on by the Roger Hornsby chapter. They had a lot of good presentations, including 2 people I'm going to try to get to come talk. One of those being Nancy Finley, right? Nancy Finley, if you know that last name, she is related to Charlie Finley. Okay, so she had a couple of really good stories about Charlie Finley. Also, what was her name? Bailey Hall, a 14-year-old, gave a really fascinating presentation about why analytics in baseball are great, but we shouldn't always depend on them.
We're here.
And a 14-year-old made that great presentation, and I'm going to let her talk to y'all. Now, the problem is she's going to be in school a lot, okay? And she has a pretty famous writer uncle, which I can't remember his name. But
Hemingway,
yeah. Yeah, old man in the sea, yeah. But she might not talk to us for a couple of months. Might be summer, I don't know. But I've talked to her a couple of times via email. So fascinating stuff. Mike Capps also talked, and Jerry Miller gave a heartfelt presentation of a Dodgers fan, remembers Vince Scully. So it was a great day of presentations. Next month, we're not going to have next month. The last couple of months, we've been having like a Saturday in the morning, 11 a.m. chapter talk, meet the new chapter members kind of thing. We're not going to do that in February because, as we discussed on Saturday, we're going to have a luncheon that we're going to try to put together on Saturday, February the 4th. That's SABR Day in America. Okay, now technically, our SABR Day in America event is going to be Fan Fest. Usually always is. But we've decided, in addition, on Saturday, we were talking, a few of us, we're going to have a luncheon on Saturday, February the 4th. Maybe at St. Arnold's Brewery or something like that.
Carmine Brewery, yeah.
Yeah, just a little Saturday lunch. Just come out maybe from like 11 to 1, 12 to 1, and just talk baseball, with us. It'll be a great day. Tell some stories, bring some memorabilia. Last year we did a event over at Jack's, and Bob, our former president, brought a lot of good memorabilia. I found out he used to be the coach of famous San Francisco 49er tight end Dwight Clark. I had never known that, but he was his baseball coach. So you might find out some fun stuff.
Like a presentation on that.
I get a presentation on them. Saturday, February 4th. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to get it down. I'm going to sit down and eat my dinner. And we have I'm sorry. Hurt? I almost forgot. At the annual event every year, Bill Gilbert annual event, they have a Hall of Fame vote. They pass around paper ballots, and you get 10 choices, like you're a baseball writer. You get to choose who you think is worthy to go in this year's Hall of Fame class. Now, according to the Roger Hornsby chapter in the Bill Gilbert meeting last week, nobody that's on the ballot this year is worthy of consideration to enter the Hall of Fame. They're usually pretty accurate. So we thought it would be a great idea to have our own vote, okay, to see if we can let somebody in. In fact, I think the closest person was Scott Rowland, right? 58%. So go ahead, you get 10 choices to fill out your ballot at the end of the meeting. We'll
Yeah, look in the chat, the online.
give the result.
There's a link in the chat. For the Zoom.
Okay, 10. You can vote for 10 people.
You have to vote.
No, you don't have to vote. You can turn a blank vote.
But if you do turn in a blank one, please make sure that you put your name on it so that I know it's a real ballot. They're just blank, they may have been sitting around, so put your name on it if you don't vote for anybody, but you want it to count as a ballot.
Can the people on the Zoom?
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. If you're on Zoom, if you're online and you want to take part in this vote, if you look in the chat session, there's a link where you can also vote for the Hall of Fame. Look on the chat there, click on the link, and you'll have the opportunity to also do it. It's right there. All right. So while y'all are doing that, I'm going to turn things over to the esteemed Bill Brown. Yes, especially if you're going to turn in a blank ballot.
I don't need to put your name on it.
Oh,
So I'm going to turn things over to Bill Brown, who will introduce our special guest for the night, Allison Foote.
Bill, see what you have for us here. Special guests on our meeting tonight. You, Allison Foote. Hey, what a great night. Ladies night here, Joe. Did you realize, have we ever had anywhere close to this number of ladies in front of our?
I don't know. I think it was Allison.
I think it was you, Allison. How many of you know what Allison Foote does? Yeah. So now she's executive editor, national content, MLB.com. So yes. Climb the ladder. Now I can tell you, and those of you who have written can tell anybody that the editor can make or break. Right. No, you know about that.
Yes,
So I'm really thrilled to hear from her for a lot of reasons, because we haven't heard from her at one of our meetings.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. You have her 50 years, correct?
it was in the bar now.
So long. Yeah. Yes, I do. Yeah, it was like in the Mitchell report.
Allison has a long background, as you're well aware. Sport. She came from the University of Cincinnati in the sports information department. Then she was with the Astros. Then she was with MLB.com covering the Astros. So she's as close to an expert as you can find on Astros baseball last 20 years or so. And that's why it's always interesting to hear her thoughts, but not only about the Astros, but what's going on in Major League Baseball. And also she's been, something of a pioneer. Now I can remember Larry Dierker too, Tal, Anita Martini is a real pioneer for women in sports journalism. Back in the day in the Astrodome, I believe she was the first woman in the locker room.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's a real trailblazer in those ways. And, Allison's been a great resource too I referred a young lady who's at Ridgeland High School in their journalism program to Allison, and she did an interview with Allison about a year ago or so. And so, she's highly sought after for young ladies who want to go into this line of work. And it's a difficult one, especially the woman in the locker room part of it. I think we've kind of broken down a lot of barriers there, and it's not the issue that it was once. But she's here to answer, I'm sure, a lot of questions, but also to tell about, I think we all read MLB.com. She'll be able to tell you the behind the scenes stories, exactly how things are put together with their articles, their coverage of all the teams. Allison Foote.
My goodness. Thank you, Brownie. That was very impressive. You kind of explained my career trajectory better than I could. This is really coincidental that I'm here today because Jeff Pearlman, he's a sports writer. You might have heard of him. He writes a lot of baseball books, a lot of biographies. He contacted me to do a podcast try to speak up. He does like a podcast, and we did it today. And it brought back all of these unbelievable memories that I'd forgotten. So he went and he did a deep dive. So I got here in 1997, and he found, for whatever reason, the Astros like put out a press release that they hired me, which was weird because my title was coordinator of publications, and I was in the media relations office as like the lowest person. But for whatever reason, they put out a press release, which means it makes the transactions in the newspaper. So he found it, Jeff found it, and it was like all these arbitration cases, whatever it was, all these people that signed, Sean Berry, this and that. And then Allison Footer hired as coordinator of publications. And I remember calling my parents and saying, I'm a transaction. Like, I was this kid. I interviewed here. You know, when I tell people now who work for us what it was like back then, I sound like I'm about 200 years old because this was before the internet. So I was working for the AA at the time, Cleveland Indians, in Canton, Ohio, and some of you might have heard this, but there were 28 teams at the time, and I had the only computer at our team, and I was going to be doing like design work and all these weird things that nobody had really done before. And we had 1996. I was at AA, and I got online, which was like the dial-up, and I put in www. And then every team in baseball, Dodgers.com, Cubs.com, and I get to Astros.com. And it's one page. Their website's one page. And I don't know, the players were maybe listed on the left, and there was this red dot right in the middle of the page, and it said, click here for job openings. And I clicked on it, and it was for a job that I was not remotely qualified for. And I applied for it. It was like director of advertising. I was 25 years old. I mean, it was ridiculous. I was applying for this. I applied for it. And they called me because there was another job. I clearly wasn't going to interview for that job. There was another job. Pam Gardner called me and said, well, there's a job in media relations that we're bringing back after we had eliminated from the strike. We're bringing it back. And I ended up getting that job. So I was in Ohio. I had, we don't come to Texas for warm weather. Ohioans go to Florida. So I had never been anywhere close to Texas. I flew in to interview, and I stayed at the JW Marriott. I called my parents and I said, this is such a good experience. I'm so glad I had the chance to interview with a major league team. I'm clearly not getting this job, but it was wonderful to have this experience. And now I will go on. And then I ended up getting the job. So that's kind of how I ended up here. I drove 19 hours with my mother from Ohio to Texas. We looked it up in the encyclopedia to see where in Texas Houston was. Yeah, she calls me. She's like, it's 2/3 of the way down on the right side. Okay, all right, I got it. So anyway, that's how I got here. But this conversation I had with Jeff Perlman today was such a walk down memory lane because I talked about Utah, I talked about Larry Dierker, I talked about Brownie, and these were people that I met like right away. And Jeff asked me about the Astrodome because I worked for 3 years in the Astrodome, and he's like, was it the dome that everyone says it is? I said, it didn't look great by the time I got there, but Tal Smith was there when it was built, and I used to hear all these great stories about what a palace it was, how beautiful it was. So I always had this image in my mind of something, much shinier than when I got to the dome. So anyway, it was those first 3 years were the best years of my life. They were the hardest I've ever worked. We used to work like 80 hours during a homestand. It was pretty nuts. And then in 2001, MLB.com started, and I moved over there to be a site reporter, and I didn't know what I was doing. There's like a trend in my career. I just didn't know exactly what I was doing when I was getting into it, and then I just figured it out. And I covered the Astros from 2001 to 2009. And then in 2009, the Astros asked me to come back and be their social media director. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know why it was there. But they saw that I was pretty active on Facebook and Twitter and doing this and that. And so the team was not starting, but it was in kind of in a little bit of a decline. And they just wanted me to keep the fan base engaged and kind of, be a conduit to the fan base. So I did that for 3 years. And then I gave the abridged version. The team got sold, and I went back to MLB.com. End of story there. So in 2012, I went back to MLB.com. And I did some like national stuff, and I did some multimedia things. And it still covered, obviously I still live in Houston, even though everyone thought I moved to New York, but I stayed in Houston. And now I am in more of a management role, and I'm an editor, and I manage a staff, young reporters who are all over the country. We have people kind of, not just the beat writers, but we have other reporters that are also based in 10 cities. And I manage them. And then Mark Feinstein, I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he covers all the hot stove, all the trade deadline, all that stuff for MLB. And I also am his editor. So, that's a couple of things. So, another question Jeff asked is like, how many games did you cover? About 120, I mean, I did get days off. And he said, what was it like in the years that the team, didn't go to the playoffs? I'm like, well, most of the time you kind of know that, by the All-Star break, that there's not a lot of hope. And it's still fun. Like, we still love watching baseball. If you don't want to watch baseball every day, then don't be a beat writer covering baseball. But I think about all of the friendships. It's really the people that I remember calling my dad my first year because I had spent so much time with Larry Dierker and Bill Brown. I was traveling with the team, Matt Kalani. I called my dad and I said, I am forming friendships with men your age. This is the weirdest thing. Like, you get so incredibly close to people when you're in this industry, which is why it's such a treat to come here today. I haven't seen talent probably a decade. And I've covered, I covered the first pennant when the Astros won the pennant in 2005. I also covered them losing 100 and whatever games, and many years later, kind of all over the place. But my first 3 years, the Astros won the division every year, 97, 98, 99. It's the only thing I knew. It's the only thing I knew, winning. And then we moved to Enron Field. And then we went 72 and 90, and it was a very eye-opening experience. But it was still fun. And, and I think about all the players that came through and just all the wonderful times. So anyway, obviously this last decade has been very fruitful. 2017, and then this past year, the Astros seem to have figured out a way to not lose. I'm on Zooms every day. I have all these meetings, and my company obviously is in New York. So there's a lot of Yankees fans that are on our Zooms every day. And the ALCS is starting. And I said, there is no pathway for the Yankees to win any of these games. I'm telling you, they're not going to win any game in a series. Oh, put up. They're not going to win. Yankees aren't going to win the series, but they're not going to get swept. I'm like, the Astros are going to sweep this series. And it was kind of nice because then the Astros ended up sweeping the series. So they referred to me as Nostradamus. And it's been, I was trying to count up the managers. So Larry Dierker was the very first. So Larry's first year managing was my first year with the Astros in 1997. So he's always been like a very special person to me. And I think I covered maybe 5 or 6 more managers after that, but nobody ever came close. They'll never came a little close to you, but yeah. Anyway, so that kind of that's a little bit of my career path, my experiences. I don't love talking about myself, but I do that. But I know that there's questions. I don't know if anybody has anything you want to ask. I have been very involved with, more on a national level. Obviously I work with the commissioner, so, but I'm also, I can speak freely. But it's been an interesting thing. I mean, we went through COVID and then we went right into a lockout. And it was pretty stressful during that time. And I'm just glad that we're out of it. We're back to, full capacity ballparks, and that everyone's happy with the basic agreement. And so that's kind of wrap up. So I don't know. Is there any questions? Yes.
Allison, I have a question for you. And Bob and I some of us were talking about this on Saturday. Why is it we're such a great franchise? But if you look at what MLB.com came up with about a week ago, who's going to be in the next 10 World Series? Astros are not even listed to be in the next 10 World Series. it's like we're gonna fall off a cliff. Can you explain what the process is? Because it came from MLB.com.
Right, Will Leach, I think, wrote that.
Will Leach, yes, that's
So
correct.
not being in the World Series does not mean you're gonna fall off the cliff. See, think about
To
how
us it
spoiled we are. There was a time when it was really hard to win a pennant.
I know.
Really hard to get to the World Series. I think that fairly, you know, my prediction a few years ago was that 23 was going to be the year that, you know, things kind of start on the decline because of all the things they had to do the farm system in order to qualify the team. So I don't think that they're just going to disappear. And I still don't see an American League team right now that is better than the Astros. But things happen. I mean, the division that the Astros are is still not great. So they'll run away with the division. Write all this down, wrote it like this. But it's true. It's almost it's not almost, it's impossible to say it's 6 years from now, but there are teams that are building, you know, the Mariners are kind of coming. We sort of saw them in the division series where they just weren't there. Like they couldn't score. They had 18 innings to score against the Astros. You couldn't do it once. So, but you can kind of feel it coming a little bit. So it's more, it's more of a fun exercise.
Yeah, I also noticed that, you know, I'll say it, the East Coast bias, because the Cubs are mentioned, or the Astros, the Yankees are mentioned twice
Right.
in the next 10 years. So it's obviously like, oh, well, the Yankees are coming back, but the Astros are going away.
Well, I have informed them that the Yankees are not, they did not get any better this offseason. So,
Okay.
yeah, but yeah.
I got it. All right. Rich.
I got something, Galvin.
Yes.
Well, first of all, be careful managing people. You haven't had to do that, right?
I haven't had to manage the people you had to manage, so it's a little.
Well, you know,
Right.
be a little easier.
Yeah, no, I get to manage people who are way underpaid. I don't know when you're.
This is the question.
Yes,
When you started 1997
yes,
from Cincinnati, where everything started in 1869.
right.
You grew up there, even though you were a little bit after the red machine, you had that sense,
I was
So-
alive. I was alive.
the tradition of baseball.
Yeah. Oh,
You started in 97. I would say the baseball has changed more between 1907 and now than it did from 1869 until 1967.
I would say you're right.
And you had to work through that transition.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about like sort of the analytics age that we're in, or are you talking about the money explosion, or I mean, it's changed completely. The way that teams put teams together, the way the front offices put teams together has changed completely. You know, if you read an article though from 75 years ago, these columnists are like, the game is dying. You're reading the exact same thing back then as you do now, in terms of the way that people think that baseball's dying and this is happening and all this new stuff that nobody wants to bother with. But yes, when the analytics age kind of exploded and we saw, I mean, we've seen what's happened in the last 10 years. The Astros obviously have benefited greatly from that. But it is much different in the way that teams are evaluated, and in some ways it's good because they have more data to determine when they see guys playing in high school, when they're first looking at it, and they have the data to go by what they need to look for and what's important. And then I don't love you know, the way that the scouts have been sort of marginalized a little bit. I am very excited about the shift being kind of going away. The positional shift, because I do want to, I'm curious, I have this very big curiosity to see if it's going to make as big of a difference as I think it will. And where I think it's going to make the biggest difference is that I think guys are going to start hitting the ball on the ground more. You know, they started teaching guys to just hit the ball in the air because hitting the ball on the ground was an out. And I'm curious to see, I don't think we're going to see it right away. I think that it's over time, over the next few years, that we're going to see, because, you know, players that are coming up through the minor leagues are taught a certain way now. and hitting the ball on the ground, maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem to be something that they're really teaching. And so I am kind of curious to see that, but I would agree that it's changed. It's changed a lot. Yes, Brownie?
You talk about the impact financially, MLB.com on MLB and the spin-off companies and the sale of those. It's
Yeah,
been so lucrative to the owners of MLB.
right. So when we call it BAM, Major League Baseball Advanced Media. That started in 2001 when the websites all started, and they turned it into a tech company, and they spun it off into a streaming service, basically. Because when it was
started in 01.
MLB Advanced Media, so we call it BAM, Baseball Advanced Media. And so we would see these like weird things that we were doing that none of us had anything to do with because it wasn't baseball, but like, oh, we're running WWE's website, and we're streaming HBO's website, like all these like preliminary things. I'm like, Elton John's website, like we were running, like why are we doing this? Little did we know that they were building basically a streaming service. So much of, and I'm trying to like in I think the National Hockey League, I think we were running that, but there were so many things that we were streaming because we had the facility and the capacity in New York to run all that stuff out of there. And so we basically were running HBO's website and everything, and they turned it into BAM Tech. So it was basically a tech company. And the owners were going to make 15% of BAM Tech forever. They owned all of it early on, but then it got sold to Disney, but the owners were still so basically BAM added like 2 billion onto the value of Major League Baseball when they made like 12 billion. Their profits were 12 billion. Like 2 of that was like BAM, which was overwhelming to think about. They sold it to Disney, but the owners still maintained a certain percentage, and they just sold it, the rest of it, a few months ago. Or like, these numbers are so ridiculous. I think close to $1 billion. And so when people are like, oh, these contracts, like why is everyone, signing these players to these huge contracts? It's a lot of things. It's not just one, like 5 different reasons, but it's that sale, because every team got another like $50 million they didn't know they were getting. I did not get any of it.
Speaking of media, do you perceive, or when can we hopefully in some of our lives, and we're getting toward the end of those, and to be able to get on to subscribe to At Bat, you don't want to go there, and see any game anywhere without these archaic blackout rules that we used to have to deal with Houston Oilers in the 1990s. It's crazy.
Yes.
That you can't just go away and it doesn't matter. Pay you guys $1,000 a year. Believe me, there'd be a bunch of people that sign up like that to watch any games anywhere MLB streaming. I know there's 1,000 different contracts, but is there work towards that? Is there a vision to make that happen?
Yes, there is. So now everyone's going to go home and be like shilling for the commissioner. But I will say it's the regional sports networks that have been preventing this. It's not that they don't want people in Iowa to be able, there's some place like right in the middle of the country where they can't get Cardinals or Cubs, or it's just this no man's land. That's not what Major League Baseball wants. But when you tell your regional sports network, oh, we want to make this available to everybody, and they're not getting their fees, they're not getting paid for it, that's been a problem. There's a lot that's coming, and I don't want to say definitively like what's going to happen, but the regional sports networks, it's becoming very antiquated, and very soon, sooner than later, you're going to see things change very quickly. I have a friend who I went to high school with who works for the one up in Pittsburgh, and he pretty much has accepted the fact that that's going away before he's ready to retire. He's in his early 50s. So you're seeing like the streaming services that were, the Apple TV Friday night game and this and that. And that's dipping the toe into something. And I don't think that anybody really knows like exactly what needs to happen, but there's going to be, I think over the next like 2 or 3 years, I can see a ton of changes. And that's the first thing that has to be because you can't prevent people from watching baseball games. Like Major League Baseball does not want you to not watch their games. You know, they want you to watch all the games, and you can buy the subscription, but you can't get the Astros games, right? And so it defeats the purpose. And so I think that we're gonna see some changes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope.
So in the spirit of the Hall of Fame that we have going on,
Yes.
do you have a Hall of Fame vote?
Not yet. I think I have like 2 or 3 more years. Yeah,
So what about major awards? Do you have those?
I do. Yes.
What'd you vote for this year?
Oh, I voted for American League Rookie of the Year and I think Cy Young. I like Brian McTaggart. I'm sure you all know him. So he contacts everyone at the end of every year. What do you want to vote for? I'm like, anything but Manager of the Year. I find the Manager of the Year vote to be like, how do I know about any other manager except the one I'm covering every day if he did a good job or not? It's too subjective. But I think that those are the 2 that I had. So I like the ones that are sort of obvious.
Right.
Yeah. So
How do you MVP this year?
Oh,
That
Aaron
kind of
Judge.
Really?
Oh, I
Even
think
with Otani kind of like.
I think I did have him. AL MVP. Yeah. No, it was
How
Aaron
close do you
Judge.
think you made it? Do you think Shohei made it close?
No, I don't think it was really
Really?
close. No, I think that I mean they have the results. They
Right.
they put the results out. Aaron Judge had not only did he have like a somewhat historic year, and he had 62 home runs. Everyone's pretending that's a record. However you feel about everything that went on.
It's a New York.
It's a Yankees record. It's an American League record. It's not like a record. It's fine. It was exciting, and he's a great guy, and it was fun to watch. But he was the only reason the Yankees limped to the playoffs. Like you take him out of the equation, and they are nothing. And you saw what happened in the postseason is that they almost blew it to a Guardians team that is like way inferior to them, and had nothing. And it was kind of fitting that Aaron Judge like had the weak ground ball to like end the ALCS. Yes. Like he was just gassed. He was exhausted emotionally. I mean, that whole chase, the pressure was on him. The Maris family was going from ballpark to ballpark. But he had a season for the ages. I don't think it was Shohei Ohtani's amazing. No, he's really amazing. Yes.
What excites you the most about the Astros this next season?
The fact that they didn't sign the Cy Young Award winner because they did not need him. I was like looking at it, and I'm going, okay, so you don't need Justin Verlander because you get those guys to get you through October. You don't need him to get you through the season. You have 6 other starting pitchers. I've never seen it like last postseason, which is why I was so adamant about the fact that no one was going to beat the Astros. They were 7 deep in their starting pitching. I'm looking at the bullpen and I'm seeing like Dr. Brown's like going to be the ace of the staff for the next 2 years. I'm seeing like Jose Urquidy, did he even pitch? I mean, these are
One game. Yeah. One game.
so you're seeing guys that are like a number 2 on 60% of the teams out there that don't even have innings to pitch for the Astros. And so it's amazing that they've stayed healthy. Like whatever the Astros formula is, it's working. And so and Yordan Alvarez, because like he's not going to always be healthy every year. There will be like times every year that he's just going to have to go in the IL. But he destroys bases when he is playing.
And now the shift is gone.
Yeah.
They did some statistics on what his and Tucker's averages would be if there wasn't a shift, and it was
I bet. Yeah, the lefties are going to really benefit from it. But Yordan, it's just like he comes to the plate, and the opposing team has to be terrified. So it's like we just get, and there's no one else you can't really pitch around him because everyone else in the lineup is really good too. But to me, to answer your question, it's starting pitching. Yes. Yes.
Can you give me some insight on the Mets' idea that buying enough players will get them a championship? And compare to what the Dodgers did a similar thing and still didn't win as many World Series as they expected.
So the Mets have a very enthusiastic owner who is a huge Mets fan, who has so much money that he just is going to, this is like a little, it's like entertainment for him. But he doesn't like quite get everything yet. And so when I saw what they were doing, I'm like, they're setting themselves up to bomb, and that may happen, it may not happen. I mean, I think it kind of be cool for them to actually win the pennant. The Yankees and Mets, there's a lot of competition there, so they don't like it when the other succeeds. I think it'd just be funny if the Yankees just, were sort of second fiddle in New York. But Steve Cohen is just, he's not been doing this very long. And he
doesn't have a general manager explaining to him it's a long-term process to be successful, like similar like the Astros. So no one's whispering in his ear saying this is not a good idea. They're just letting him because he has all the money in the
100 games. So they're not starting from nothing. So they have like a really good team, and really, if you look at the moves, it was more like retaining their guys. They brought on Verlander. They have two guys like Scherzer and Verlander, the first ballot Hall of Famers. They have thousands and thousands of innings on their arm. So it's not a sure thing that they're going to be able to carry them. And if you see, what's also making up Verlander is like, you hit a wall at some point in October. His wall comes a little earlier every year, if you guys have noticed. And Max Scherzer, he's had some postseasons that haven't gone very well because he's kind of like done. I mean, that one was the wild card game a couple of years ago. He's like, I'm done. Not to say that that's what's going to happen, but they also just retained some of their closer, outfielder. They just paid them, but they're a really good team, and they just don't. They wanted these guys. It doesn't really matter what they cost, and that's the excitement. But in a couple of years, I'll be interested to see what he does.
So I'm curious, given that state, why they didn't keep Correa. We all hated when New
You
York,
didn't know who Jeremy Pena was.
when New York failed.
Oh, wow. Thinking about why the Mets didn't.
Correa, I mean, you guys throwing money to everyone, like you're saying.
That's why you don't let people know that you signed a guy until pending physical. It's an actual real thing. Like pending,
He was pending with the Giants.
and
Suddenly,
he got strapped. And then what happens is, I actually would like to ask Tal for help on this. When I try to explain this, here's my guess. This is, you get medical experts, you get your team doctors in there, you get people who look to that and they see this particular thing that might be of concern, and they can tell you here's what's going to happen at 32, here's what's going to happen when he's 35, whatever it was, whether it's arthritis, whether it's, I don't know, but you have people that can foresee. And the Giants and the Mets, according to reports, saw the exact same thing. I was stunned. Yeah, well, right.
I think that's overstated.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Me being over.
No, I think the fact they used the same doctor, obviously, the doctor that the Giants used, the Mets would refer to his report. But I think a report that they relied on that exclusively, I don't think that's the case at all. I think he was one of several.
Yes.
That I think it was misstated, right?
I completely 100% agree with you, because a friend of mine mentioned it, and I was like, okay. And it's like, right, and I think it was Carlos's version. Oh, they used the same doctor. It's like, there's no way that the Mets just used the exact same doctor that just sent this thing to the Giants.
That wouldn't have made any sense. It wouldn't have started.
Of course not. So there's a lot of, it stuns me. I have not thought about that injury to Carlos since it happened. I actually think I was covering for McTaggart that day when it did happen. I seem to remember writing the story. Carlos was 19 years old. It was 2014. I haven't thought about that injury. His lower back is the thing that I've been telling people for years. I'm like, he had a back problem at 24, so that's not going to get any better. And all of a sudden, it's this ankle thing. But there's apparently a plate in the ankle. And as you get older and you have the wear and tear, and you play as intensely as Carlos does, there were things that were seen, and all of a sudden his deal is 6 years, I think, guaranteed, and then a few others. And the Twins need him. He's going to pass the physical by the Twins. And Twins absolutely needed him.
Is there an insurance thing where do they try to insure these big salaries?
They insure.
So some insurance company may have said, they may have looked at it too and said, we're not going to cover you for this or whatever. And that may have had an impact.
I don't know. I don't know. That was the other thing that I talked to Perlman about today was Jeff Bagwell showed down from yesteryear about total, what what constitutes being totally disabled. And then the insurance company's like, no, you guys go and pay him. And then, the team is like, no, we need the insurance to pay it. And it can get very ugly. But when you sign someone to a 12-year contract, which is crazy, most of us in this room have approached 40 and know things happen, to everyone. It's not so easy physically but to sign anyone for that length of time, you're not going to get the full length of the contract where they're going to be this outstanding athlete. You're paying for X amount. And if you feel like in that 5 years or whatever, you're not going to get that top caliber where you can just eat the rest of the contract, then you really have to start thinking. But I love Carlos, so I actually watched this unfold, and it just made me kind of sad because I'm like, he didn't deserve this. It was embarrassing in a lot of ways, and just to be, to have the entire Giants fan base mad, and now the Mets fan base is mad, and Carlos deserves a little bit better than that.
Yeah, the Astro fan base mad when they didn't sign him, but it makes the Astros look pretty darn good. They got this extra money for Yardon and the rest of the players.
Well, Pena, he ended up being the MVP in the last 2 rounds of the playoffs. I think turned out okay.
Yeah. So you have to be quick to criticize.
It's
You were talking about so much money that you're running to Major League Baseball right now. Is there any hope at all for clubs like Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Oakland to be competitive in this current? Maybe something the way baseball is playing.
I think that that every team could be competitive. The A's for sure, right? Because they break it down and then they build it up, and then they're good for a few years, and then they have to kind of break it down. Pittsburgh, I've been waiting and nothing's been happening. You can look at the Tampa Bay Rays, and that's the answer to me. It's like, well, if you know what you're doing, you can compete with one of the smallest payrolls. It's very difficult, but the money that they get from the broadcasting, the national broadcasting rights, from there's a lot of money flowing. That there are ways that you can have a competitive team, but you can't make mistakes. You can't even make a single mistake. The Rays just don't make mistakes when they draft, when they scout, when they sign guys. Growing up a Reds fan, I can tell you, all they do is make mistakes. They have made almost no good decisions for a decade. And it's mostly ownership. It comes from ownership, but
Smart shit.
yeah. She just looks like all scouts. She's sitting around watching baseball games, sitting in the stands. And then for 15 years they were bad because of that. But Pittsburgh did build a winner, in 2012, 2013, 2014. The place was packed, and they had Andrew McCutchen, who was MVP, and they had these really good young pitchers. But you have to keep that going, and it's harder. It's definitely harder. To me, the hard part is not being able to keep your own great players. But you can do what the Mets did, and it may work and it may not work. When you have your own great players and you can't keep them, that's what makes me kind of sad. And that's what the Astros have done incredibly well, is they're not signing these long-term contracts. They go in and they nail down Lance McCullers, and they get Yordan Alvarez. They lock these players up that they know that they want, and they don't just do 6 crazy long-term contracts. And then they have a healthy fan base, and they've got the money flowing, and they've got a good farm system. Not anymore, but the Astros. It's a huge city, but it's not like a huge media market. It's average. It's just a gigantic city, but you have to get the right people making the decisions. Not everybody is.
You walk me through the process of breaking a story, whether it be a trade, signing, or a trade. Maybe where this information comes from. By no means though we know any of your sources, obviously, but because usually you think it comes from the team or maybe the agent side, or just all the above.
All the above. You get a lot of things from agents. Sometimes you find things out really randomly. I told Mark Berman when you're on your deathbed, when you're actually on your deathbed, I want you to tell me where you're finding some of this stuff. Yeah. And Phil Garner said, I swear he's got my office bugged. Something happened and Phil hadn't even spoken it out loud inside his office. And then Mark's calling him like with this, like, can you confirm? He's like, how did you know this? Anyway, I'm going out on a tangent. Sometimes it comes from the player. Sometimes the agent, it's all different ways that we can find things out. It's getting it confirmed, which is the challenge. Because the way we used to do it before things kind of, it's like the Wild Wild West now, but you try to get two sources, you try to get things confirmed. And that's where you can go to some people that work in the front office that can kind of be like just a confirmation or I wouldn't go with that, which means you're off. You have to find people that you trust, which is also sometimes takes an entire career. And I don't know, like, where some of these like big guys, with like Ken Rosenthal, and there's so many people that they talk to. It's just fascinating, but a lot of it does come from the agents. It does. It's because the teams, like we've seen, I mean, if you are a team and you confirm something on the record and they fail the physical, you could be on the hook to pay them. So teams really have to be very, very quiet about things. The agents, they like to do it the opposite way. Yes.
What's good? How long is it gonna take before the commissioner gets off the pace of play issue?
Well,
It's everything we turn around, pace of play is basically that. If they want to just change the game. If they want to change the game, take your 3-minute commercials between it and make 2 minutes, and you automatically solve the pace of play. But that's revenue. They don't want to lose that.
Right.
I mean, I don't like 2 throws over at first base and then penalize the pitcher. That's not baseball.
Yeah. Now that one I don't. That one I'm kind of curious because I'm not sure that's the greatest way to do it. But I think that some of the other things that they're doing are going to take us back to a time, a generation before. It kind of makes me laugh because it's like we wanted to take it back to sort of the old days when games were like 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes. We're losing the attention span of younger people. We are. We're losing interest in the game, and a lot of it has to do with. I think that just the taking away the shift. Like it's going to be a faster game. It's going to be a more entertaining game. But yeah, I mean, not everyone loves it. But he's going to. When you say when is he going to stop talking about it? It's this year. I mean, it's the.
Oh, he's got more in the pipeline. Oh.
Well, the pitch clock is a big thing, and the pitchers, but they spent 2 seasons in the minor leagues working on this stuff, and the overwhelming feedback from the pitchers and from the team is this is so much better. And the players, you talk to the major league players, they say this is going to help me maintain over the course of the season, not being out there as long. So just try it. Just give it a try.
Yeah.
No.
I'll just say my son-in-law played minor league ball this year. We watched him a lot, and he came up every 9 times a lot quicker because of the pitch clock, and it took him a while to get used to it from college. I really enjoyed the pitch clock. I don't know about holding runners on with 2 pitches.
Yeah, and maybe that'll be amended. I mean, things will work, but they've tested this so much. They're not just like starting it now. I mean, this has been for so long, and they've gotten input from the people in uniform. I mean, they're not doing things that people aren't actually like in favor of doing.
What's your crystal ball then on the electronic umpire ball strikes?
That's coming. It's
I
just
know that are you getting positive feedback from everybody that's associated with that?
Mostly it's angry people that see like all these blown calls from the umpires. And the thing is that now that we are watching games with 19 different camera angles, we know when the bad calls are made, right? And that wasn't the way it was before all that. It's not fair to the umpires. I never understood how the human eye could possibly do what they were expected to do. Ball's coming at you 100 miles an hour and it needs to be here, and you can see that, in real time. And it turns out that they're pretty good, but they're not all great. There's like that one umpire who is that's 100 years. He got 100% of the calls right, and one of the Pat Hobart, Hobart, yeah. He got 100% of the calls right in the postseason game, which is just like unheard of now, but they are not close to feeling comfortable that they have the technology down yet. It's gonna be, they're taking their time until it has to be right. Has to be right. Yeah.
What's your 2 or 3 best memories now? Your baseball covering career.
Oh, boy. So the Astros winning the pennant in 05 is probably number one. For many reasons. Number one, they clinched it in St. Louis, where so many disastrous disappointments and they destroyed that visiting clubhouse in St. Louis. And the trophy was given. And I looked up, you see that scene every year when they present the trophy and the up there. But I looked and it was like these people that had like hired me, that had brought me into the organization all those years before. And it was just so special to see. I was so happy for so many people. I was happy for Tal, I was happy for Pam Gardner, I was happy for, whoever, Phil Garner and my old boss, Rob Matwick, who is like, I call him my hero. So Bagwell Biggio, like finally getting to a World Series, seeing that chaos and the fact that it's funny, all these years later, when they show that Albert Pujols home run, I cannot watch it. All these years later, I still can't watch it.
I did last game 6.
And it was because of, my heart just hurt for Brad Lidge. And so just seeing this like kind of relief with everybody after that had happened. So that's like number one. Craig Biggio's 3,000th hit was very cool. I started covering every game once he got to within 30. So I was like on every road trip, every home game. And Craig was incredibly gracious to me through the whole thing. He kind of gave me some little things. And he actually told me that he was announcing his retirement after 3,000. And I was the only one that he told. Of course, Mark Berman did find out about it. And then Craig thought I had told Mark. Just watching that happen was really cool. My first opening day, I just don't remember it that well, but I know that was like so I think those are things that really stand out for me.
Sound the opposite of that, the converse, what are your most disappointing memories? 2004 was. I think back to 2004, Jim Edmonds in St. Louis, we would have gone to the World Series.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for him.
Yes. So that catch up is Brad Osmus, right?
Yeah.
Brad Osmus hit that ball. And that was absolutely brutal. I mean, the Lidge thing was brutal, even though the Astros ended up winning the pennant. But it also meant that Roy Oswald had to pitch the next game instead of being able to start the World Series. And I just sort of feel like the World Series might be played out differently. Roy had been rested and ready to start the series. We did an oral history on that NLCS, that 04 NLCS, which was so phenomenal. And not nobody, but like the Red Sox and the Yankees were also playing. So it's like it's an LCS that so few people nationally were watching it. It was unbelievable if you just dissect everything. And I talked to Jim Edmonds and I was ready to hate the guy, and he took me through that. And this is when I realized why these guys do what they do and we cannot do it. He's standing like 375 feet back in center field. And he said, when I saw the ball where it was about to hit his bat, it hadn't even connected with Osmus's bat. He saw where it was going and he goes, oh, bleep, and started running back. It was like he could tell before it was hit where that ball was going to end up. And he took off and ended up making that like crazy catch. And that was hugely disappointing. The Astros getting swept in the World Series, actually, I don't even find that to be a low point. At some point, I was like, okay, they're not winning this World Series. Jeff Blum and I have this running joke over the years because of his 13th inning home run or 14th inning that kind of put it away. And I said, I was so tired, Blummy, that I just was like, I can't go back to Chicago. So let's just get this over here. And I don't know, the 04 the clubhouse scene and losing the LCS in 04 was the most devastation that I have ever seen inside a clubhouse. Guys were crying. I mean, you could they felt like this was the year, this was going to be the series. And I just was stunned at the silence and it wasn't like that when they lost the World Series in 05. It was kind of like okay, we didn't do so well. Let's get out of here. But that 04, that was the worst clubhouse scene I had ever been a part of. Well, when they lost the World Series in 2019, but that's kind of past my time. So, but that was really bad too.
Right.
Else?
Anybody else?
Allison was right.
This is like, so I do want to start kind of do these things. Just keep reminding me.
So we'll make you names, okay? Do we have any more Hall of Fame ballots that are out? Guess what? All right, hand them to hers. Allison was talking about umpiring a few minutes ago.
Yes.
So now let's shift to umpiring. Chapter member Jimmy would like to spend a few minutes, a little time talking about his umpiring career. Did I get that right, Jimmy?
Yes.
All right. And after this, you'll be ready to announce the results at least. Okay, depending on the online. If you haven't voted online yet, please go ahead and do so. Once we announce that, we'll have a trivia contest and I have a little gift for the winner. So, Jimmy, it's all you, sir.
Thank you.
Umpiring.
She set the bar pretty high. I hope not to put you guys to sleep, ladies. So, yes, I'm a retired umpire. 14 years doing high school varsity in the greater Houston area. 14 years doing an elite tournament in Cooperstown, New York, called Cooperstown Dreams Park. And I cut my teeth on pony baseball in the Houston area doing 9 to 18 years. And what I learned real quick, there's a lot of similarities as I watch major league games with high school. Obviously, the ML game is a lot faster, but it starts with the same thing, a lineup card. So I brought a lineup card, and I think you'll recognize somebody on the card. I did a game with Biggio, and his son he put his son batting third, so that's okay. So the way high school works is you get your schedule in February, first of February. And obviously it's fluid with rainouts and game changes and so forth. The way MLB works, and with the esteemed guys in here, correct me if I'm wrong, MLB chooses crew chiefs, and then they draft the umpires they want for their crew. And I found that real interesting from reading a couple of umpire books. So with umpiring, what I learned real quick was you need to hustle, and your timing is really, really important. One of my early mentors told me about a play he had at home. He said, Jimmy, made three calls on one play. I called the runner out at home. I called him safe because the catcher dropped the ball. And then I called him out again because the runner didn't touch him. So timing is very, very important. I had a high school game at Baytown Lee where my timing was a little off. I was in B position, which is in between first base and second base. And the runner's coming to first. And I know he's going to be safe. In my mind, he's going to be safe. So I start my safe call, and the batter runner shorts the base. So what do? I go, he's out, he's out, he's out. I sold the call. So the coach comes out, really crusty guy. World, did you see? I said, Coach, he shorted the base. He didn't touch it. Ask your first base coach. Fortunately, the first base coach said. So I got out of that. But in MLB, you know, we all see the umpires doing balls and strikes. And when I did balls and strikes in high school, basically I gave a ball on each side. And you might ask, well, why aren't you calling the strike zone? Well, in high school, you want to keep the game moving. I mean, nobody wants to see 18 walks in one game. Even when it was really, really good pitching, I gave a ball on each strike, on each corner. And I was doing a game out in Cyprus. And I think it's the fifth inning. Batter comes up. I call this pitch a strike. And the player has this look like I just stole his laptop. To the coach. What does the coach say? He says, he's been calling that pitch all night, swing the bat. So what that told me, the most important thing for a balls and strike guy is to be consistent. And I thought I was pretty consistent. We talked about missing pitches. We all see missed pitches. I didn't want to miss more than 5 pitches a game. I figured if it was 5 or less, I did a pretty good job. But with home plate, you've got the batter runner till he clears the running lane. And you also have foul balls on each side till it gets to the base. But what I find interesting about umpiring, and most of the high school games are a 2-man crew, unless it's a private school and they pay the third guy, is the rotations. And with 2 guys, you hope you got a good partner because you can get hung out to dry. And even though the MLB is 4 in the regular season, if you notice in the first inning or any inning with nobody on, the second base umpire, he's nicknamed the Rabbit. He's in short center field, left and right. And if he decides to go out for a ball, for a catch, no catch, then it reverts back to three-man mechanics. What would happen there is the third base guy would take the call at second. The home plate guy would creep toward third if there's going to be a play or not. If there happens to be a play, he gets closest so he can make the play. The first base guy, once the runner is cleared, you have a touch and there's no obstruction, he starts going because he's got home plate. So if there's a wild throw, then the first base guy has home plate. If there's not a wild throw, what we do in umpire legend is we put a pile of dirt on the home plate to show the home plate guy that I'd hustled and I was there, but I needed to play. And then, there's other rotations. If the third base umpire goes out for a fair or foul or catch, no catch, or the right field or the 4-man crew, you still got the same mechanics where we revert back to 3. And think, it doesn't happen a lot, but a guy will get sick during a game or injured. And then there's nobody in the bullpen to warm up. They go to 3-man mechanics, as I described. So, like I said, Allison, you raised the bar pretty high. Everybody looks like they're still awake. I'll be glad to take some questions now and then later. Just give me the choke sign if I'm talking too much. Yes.
Umpiring, while a lot of the video of kids baseball has been coming up, like even my nephew's 9-year-old games has live streaming, and coaches our parents are recording, and they go, "Hey, you missed this." I
have a story about that.
It's crazy.
It was a high-level district game at Baytown Lee. They were playing Goose Creek Memorial, and their coach was an ex-junior college coach, Coach Rupp. Really, 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 really crusty. I mean, crusty. So there was a pass ball, played the plate. I see a tag before the touch. I ring him up. So he comes in. "What in the world did you see?" I said, "Coach, I saw a tag before the touch." Fortunately, he kind of just left. So I go to the fence, get my water, which is close to the league dugout. And the league coach says, "We're taping this game and you got that call wrong." I said, "Well, tell him." Yes,
As an umpire, when you watch major league games, do you feel like the umpires behind the plate do a pretty good job, or when you watch a game?
well, it's kind of like, they establish their strike zone, as we know, some are more
Yeah.
liberal than others.
Specific, right?
Right. I look, and then when you look at an umpire, there's basically two positions behind the plate. I always did the box, which I would be like right here for a right-handed batter and right here for a left-handed. If you notice some of the taller guys in MLB, they'll do what's called the scissors like this. I never really felt comfortable doing the scissors.
Yeah.
So there's the box and scissors. Yes,
You mentioned Baytown League. Umpire any games that Jackie Bird managed for Baytown.
no, but I did a fall league game where Bobby Tolan was on the coaches. That was pretty cool. Yes,
When you have the plate and you set up, where is your, let's say on the inside corner to a right-handed batter?
Right.
Your left eye, right even with that inside corner?
yes.
Okay.
I'm locked in like this. They tell you if you lose something off the corner. And they say that, and it's true, an umpire's worst nightmare is a left-handed batter and a left-handed pitcher. It's tough. Yes,
So a friend of mine does some umpire, he says, really hard to tell on a low pitch, whether it's too low or whether it's the strike zone, because the shoulders of the catcher walk. Field and see, is that? Heard that?
yeah, and what a lot of people think you should get lower to get a better view of the low strike. It's the exact opposite. You want to be higher to get the low strike better.
Right. And also, do you set your eyes at the top of the strike?
Right. Yeah. Basically, my catcher is my best friend. Before a game, for the lap, he throws it down. I introduce myself to him, and I always ask the catcher, "What does your pitcher throw?" Because if he's got a knuckle curve or a knuckleball, I want to know about it. So when I start seeing it, I'm not fooled by it.
Did you have much problem with these high school catchers trying to frame pitches?
Well, I don't have any problem with somebody trying to frame them. It's when they do this. And I would explain to him, he said, "Son, every time you do that, you're telling me it's a ball."
Has anybody ever been super obnoxious, been like, here, have my glasses, since you clearly.
No. I'd like to think I was a pretty good umpire. So, when I'm with other umpires and I hear this war story, I think, I never had that. But I did have a neat play. If you remember the Braves in the 90s, TBS was the superstation. And they would run this ad for the Braves where they had two guys sliding in at the same time. Does anybody remember that commercial? Okay, well, I had that. I was out at Humboldt, base hit, and I see two runners not 5 yards apart. I'm going, I got the Braves play. So the first guy comes in, call him safe. Second guy comes in, I'm calling out because like Lou Brock didn't do in the 67 series, he didn't slide. So both coaches got the same result, 1 out, 1 safe. So the guy that had the runner safe, he says, "You just didn't want to call them both safe." I said, "Coach, I called what I said." So I'm walking to the car and I passed the crew that's coming in. And the guy says, "I saw that play you had with the 2 runners at home. I think you got it right. And I'm sure glad you had it and not me." So the Biggio card, I think, made it around. This is a picture from that game, and it shows me behind the plate. And then I touched on Cooperstown Dream Spark. Before COVID, 13 weeks in a row, 100 teams would come up and play like an elite 12-year-old tournament. And obviously Cooperstown, with a population of 2,000 and change, doesn't have enough umpires. So teams are supposed to sponsor an umpire, help defray some of the expenses, because the games are all done gratis. And then I was fortunate enough to do 2 games at Minute Maid. One was a high school all-star game, and one was I had the plate in a high school game. And one thing I can tell you, there's a lot of foot candles behind the plate at Minute Maid. There's no excuse for anybody to say, well, I didn't see it. Yes.
We have Larry Dierker here. He's
Yeah, I'm
very versed in obscure stories about baseball. And I've got to admit, I'm fascinated by your Mickey Mantle's Holiday Inn shirt, Joplin, Missouri. One of you, 2 of you should have a story about that shirt.
Well, I have 2 stories. One, I found it online. 2, originally from Memphis, Tennessee, which is the home of Hollywood. And they did a really good job, because this is the original sign that Kemmons Wilson put on his hotels.
Anything from you? I can't hear you.
That's what I used to tell the coaches. Well,
It's really nice.
All right, any other questions? Go ahead, Bob.
The automatic striking balls fits in using blinders. So when one batter comes up, he's 5'7". Next batter comes up, he's 6'5". Is there a human involved whenever batter comes up to somehow scan the knees and scan the whatever the upper thing is? And
That is an excellent question. I have absolutely no idea. And it will have. That's right. Because they're not gonna have somebody behind, ideally, they're gonna have somebody behind the plate, gonna be getting the call in the ear. So there's the technology will have to adjust to, Altuve or Aaron Judge, which is why they're not starting. We're not there yet.
I mean, I can see a game where pitch comes in and the umpire hears that's a strike, and the player says, "Listen, when we did this in spring training and they analyzed me, that wasn't a strike. Something wrong here."
Could be. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with this, honestly.
Like little deals in their jerseys.
I think Mr. Barter's right. I am not gonna make a difference in the pitcher or.
Basically, only the coach has like they're allowed
Challenge.
challenge. So most of the time they don't challenge because they only challenge with.
Yeah, the camera's talking.
And that's what I always tried to do. When it was 2-2 or 3-2, I gave myself, okay, this is the money pitch. Take your time. Always told myself, watch this pitch. This is crucial pitch. I gave myself a little pep talk. 2 other quick things. Umpire sign language. First and second, no outs, 1 out. We have anybody? Very good. You don't win anything, but you got to. So the home plate guy is going to go like this, and that tells its partner that the infield fly is in play. In high school ball, you don't really see this in major league. So if there's a pass ball and you got second and third, as a plate umpire, I do this, meaning we don't have it. And then you see an umpire, home plate umpire, do this. That means there's a potential timing play, which means you got a runner on second, you got a runner on third, even a runner on first, 2 outs. You want to make sure that we know at the plate if we had the out before the touch. And what I always used to do, even if it was close, but not really close, I would point to home plate, say, count the run, again, selling call. Thanks, everybody.
People, at least one person online reminded me that I didn't introduce Jimmy. Well, this is Jimmy Scruggs. Again, great presentation on umpire. Herb, are you ready? And while we are, while Herb is talking about the results, Kobe is going to, you got a trivia contest to pass out there, everybody? Okay. Kobe will pass out the trivia contest, but first, did this chapter elect anybody to the Hall of Fame? Herb, Mr. VP, go ahead, Herb.
I guess I'll answer that question first. We elected one person.
Speak up.
We elected one person to the Hall of Fame. Billy Wagner. 56 people voted online. 85% voted for Billy Wagner. 85%. Nobody else received 50%.
Who was it?
Billy Wagner received 85%.
Except for that?
Okay, nobody received 50%. Okay, it's either 11 or 12. I don't remember. I just count. I think it was 11 other people received 10% or more. Yeah, so they would. 12 people did actually. 11% would remain on the ballot. Jeff Kent was one of them, so he would fall off because it's his 10th year.
Who was second?
Our second was this definitely had a Houston flavor. Jeff Kent was second, 42%. Andy Pettit was third with 39%. Todd Helton was fourth with 36%. Gary Sheffield was fifth with 31%. And Carlos Beltran had 28%. So the first year ballots. Second was Jeff Kent. Jeff Kent. Okay.
Billy Wagner with 85%, Mike.
Hey, there was.
Yes, I think
So that was really hard. It wasn't hard, but it's here.
Scott Rowland has been first was first in the Hornsby chapter with 58%. He received only 28% here. So 10 votes out of 36.
How did like some of like the stairwell guys look like?
A-Rod got 22% with 8 votes. Manny got the same number, 8 votes.
What about Gary Sheffield?
Gary Sheffield was 5th overall. He got 11 votes, 31%. Of the newcomers, Beltran obviously got the most. Only 2 other people even got votes. Matt Cain got 1 vote. And the other one was Francisco Rodriguez got 2.
How about A-Rod? What did he get?
A-Rod got 22%, 8 votes out of 36.
Mark Burley.
He's second.
Yeah, but he got 1 vote, right?
Right, he got 1 vote.
Mark Burley got
Burley was close. He had the most last year, I think.
I tried to.
People that were on the ballot for the first year.
All right, thank you, Herb. Publish that. I think we should publish that in the newsletter.
So I'll add this and the actual Hall of Fame vote into the newsletter.
All right, good. Okay, you and Patrick can kind of put that together since y'all worked at it together. How about that? Trivia contest now. Last year, first time attendee Kobe won the trivia contest last month. So take it away, Kobe. And I have prizes for first and second place.
Remember, you can have teams. So last time was my first meeting. Y'all all welcomed me with open arms. I really appreciate that. And so my theme for this one was first timers, since I was a first timer last meeting. And I talked to Mr. McCroskey a few days ago,
And he mentioned that usually we kind of give like a little, we kind of add some of the people that we did lose in 2022 in the baseball world. And so the first 5 questions are a little bit of a homage to those we did lose in 2022. And from there on out is going to be mostly Houston-based trivia. And so we are sticking with most of the first things that happened. So I guess I can read these out to you, but you also have the papers right in front of you. But you can see number 1 is this Hall of Fame pitcher was the first pitcher to win the Cy Young Award in both the National and American League. Number 2, this legendary broadcaster called his first World Series game in 1955 at the age of 27, the youngest to ever call a World Series, which record does still stand today. This Hall of Fame pitcher was the first pitcher elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame without ever starting a game. This former Red became the first and only pitcher to throw a perfect game in Cincinnati's franchise. Better known as a Dodger, this switch hitting shortstop took the first at bat in Expos history.
We're allowed to have teams, right? Yes.
Can you move back up to number 5, please?
Yeah.
So
What was number
the
5?
6th question is the only question I have where you can get multiple points on. So I want the first year played at Holt Stadium, the Astrodome.
No, they can't hear.
I didn't put in Ron Sushman main part just so you didn't say, oh, well, they named it this year, so. Right down those years.
Okay, tell me.
Oh, we got mute, so I'm not the the answer.
Those first 5 are real tough. I'm just gonna say that it gets easier from there. Promise. You have to read the questions. I'll give you all a little bit to. What question are you on?
7.
7.
There's up to 7.
So number 7, this third baseman was the first batter in Houston franchise history. He also recorded the first hit and scored the first run in Houston's MLB history. All right, number 8 is a fun one. This Houston legend made his first major league start on his 18th birthday for the Colt 45s back in 1964. I wonder who that one might be. I don't know. Number 9. Who is the first player in Astros history to hit for the cycle? First player in Astros history to hit for the cycle. Number 10. What year did the Astros make their first postseason appearance?
Is that a trick question?
Number 11. Who won the first Cy Young Award in Astros history?
Last but not least.
And number 12. No, there's a back. I'm back. By the way, there's a back if y'all didn't see. I'm sorry. For 12. Who won the first MVP in Astros history?
Yeah, it makes me feel better at the end.
What year did the Astros win 100+ games for the first time? Obviously, we know they've done it a few times. What was the first year they did that? Who did the Astros beat in the 2005 NLCS to win their first pennant? If you were paying attention to Allison, then you might get some bonus points. We'll see who was paying attention.
They destroyed their clubhouse.
Number 15. Which Astros player's first career home run was an inside marker off Madison Bumgarner? In 2015, this Astros legend became the first player to enter the Baseball Hall of Fame as an Astro. I really hope we get this one. I really hope so. This Astro became the first American League Cy Young winner in franchise history. Emphasis on the American League.
Are you gonna slow down?
I'm slowing down for you, Mike.
That's right.
I'm slowing down for everybody. And Mike.
Yeah.
Number 18 is this Astro became the first American League Rookie of the Year winner in franchise history.
Number 19 is good.
Number 19. Who was the first Astros pitcher to record a save series? And I'll go ahead and just jump to 20 since it's kind of the same theme. Who was the first Astros pitcher to record a win in the World Series? I'll give y'all some time. I was asking you.
All right, we'll give y'all a couple of minutes to answer these.
Yeah.
All right, you got it.
Right. Outside.
Nice. I tried to listen. Yeah, that's right. I stay away from cursing. I want to know we're going to for numbers on it. Really connect. On this side, we got a bunch of giveaways. This is the way to write a quiz. Got a bunch of gimmies. No, they. Way to write a quiz. Good job.
I did a good job.
Get it next stuff. You got a bunch of giveaways. Right. You got some stuff.
I couldn't have got it without your words of wisdom.
But you did a good job. I like it. Can't get them on.
I wonder if Tal knew me out of the I've got all of them.
Much more time you give. Man.
It's fine. Yeah.
Everybody finished? No? So you can go teacher, class hours tomorrow. Put your pencils down.
Big Joe, based on that one question, if anybody in this chapter got 0, they should be immediately removed from the chapter.
Yes, that's right. That is Chris's suggestion. Question.
One about some first pitcher that pitched to the youngest guy ever, or whatever, number 18 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Oh, and you new people got name tags too. Your name tag's in the bid, so yeah, next time.
Great question. Great question. I might have actually got a little correct. I used to be able to. These guys come up and stuff, I'm like, what? What are you doing with this? And you look later.
You had to remember playing fast with Tom White. He would win every other month on one of his trips, because when he wasn't doing it, he was winning. It was just, to beat him, you had to be on top of your game.
In between, like, this guy right here.
Yeah, no one ever got to go off.
But. Well, all right. Okay. And school starts tomorrow. Collie, go ahead.
Same pitcher, he's the first pitcher to win the Cy Young, National League, and the American League.
All right, everybody, hey.
Gaylord Perry.
Gaylord Perry is correct. There you go. This legendary broadcaster called his first World Series game in 1955 at the age of 27. Vin Scully is correct. The answer is Vin Scully. This Hall of Fame pitcher was the first pitcher elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame without ever starting a game.
Bruce Sutter.
Bruce Sutter is correct. Bruce Sutter. Number 4 from Allison's neck of the woods. This former Red became the first and only pitcher to throw a perfect game in Cincinnati's franchise history.
Tom Brown.
Tom Brown.
Anybody else remember what they were doing right at that moment or just?
Maybe just you.
To make it. To the bowling alley.
Number 5, better known as a Dodger, this switch hitting shortstop took the first at bat in Expos history. Maury Wills is correct. Y'all doing great. I'm impressed. So now we're going to shift gears into more of a Houston baseball. What was the first year played at Colt Stadium, the Astrodome, and then what's now known as Enron or Minute Maid Park, respectively?
Talent, no idea.
About Colt Stadium.
62.
62. Dome. 65 and Minute Maid. 1,000. I'm proud of all. There you go. That's 3 points, 1 point for correct year. Y'all doing awesome. This third baseman was the first batter in Houston's franchise history, also recorded the first hit and the first run in Houston's MLB history, and is in the Astros Hall of Fame. Bob Aspermonte is correct. All right, y'all better get this one right. This Houston legend made his first major league start on his 18th birthday for the Colt 45s in 1964.
And he's sitting in this room.
Who is the first player in Astros history to hit cycle? Cesar Cedeno is correct. Number 10. What year did the Astros make their first postseason?
1980.
1980 is correct.
I'm mad at myself. Okay.
Who won the first Cy Young Award in Astros history? Scott. Yo, y'all are doing great. Number 12 won the first MVP in Astros history. Jeff Bagwell. Look at us. Number 13, what year did the Astros win 100 games for the first time? 1998, the year of my birth. You're not coming to age anymore. He's sitting in this room. I think he was manager of the year as well. Who did the Astros beat in the 2005 NLCS to win their pennant? Everyone at once. St. Louis Cardinals. Which Astros player's first career home run was an inside the Parker of Madison Bunga.
Jose Altuve.
Jose Altuve. Hit one in the left center field gap. He just kept motoring around.
His coach Allison didn't get that one.
In 2015, this Astros legend became the first player to enter the Baseball Hall of Fame as an Astro. There we go. This Astro became the first American League Cy Young winner in franchise history. Dallas Keuchel is the correct answer. In 2015, Dallas Keuchel.
Yeah.
All right, we're at number 18. This Astro became the first American League Rookie of the Year winner in franchise history. Carlos Correa. This wasn't the first Rookie of the Year, first American League Rookie of the Year. Who was the first Astros pitcher to record a save in the World Series?
Presley.
It's not Ryan Presley. Was not Osuna. This happened in 2017. Not Davinsky. Game 3 to be exact. Brad Peacock got it. Brad Peacock came. On the same kind of length, on the same frame length, who was the first Astros pitcher to record a win in the World Series? This was game 2 of the 2017 World Series. Was our first win in franchise history in the World Series. McCullers is not the correct answer. I'm going to give you all a hint. Remember that game with extra innings? So it was a pitcher that came in late that ended up getting the save. I mean, the win, excuse me. Chris Davinsky is the correct answer.
How many possible correct?
20.
Sharon?
3.
Yeah, what? Tell me what's it? 23?
There are 22 total.
22 total points. Okay, dare we start? 15 correct answer. How many? 22. Okay, maybe 10 correct answers.
So how many?
22, Mike. Start at 10. 12. 14. Well, it looks like anybody online?
He stopped at 12.
They stopped at 12. So it's just Mike. I can tell again.
Wow. Dynasty is formed.
I assume Mike and Tal work as teams. Work as a team.
I think it was only Mike.
It was only Mike. Mike, in honor of the Hall of Fame. Now, the Hall of Fame vote itself, we elected Billy Wagner. The Hall of Fame vote is the 25th, right? Is that when they're going to announce the results? The 25th? 24th? Yes, Jimmy.
Anybody have an opinion, yay or nay, that Craig McGriff?
Oh, yay, for sure. You should.
Well, yeah, he got in. Okay.
Oh,
Should have been in a long time ago.
Yeah, great nickname.
Great nickname.
well, the one thing that impressed me so much in the era of steroids, he was squeaky clean.
Yeah, most likely, yeah. And he hit 493 home runs, which is it's enough. Yeah, he should have been in a long, long time.
So I have 2 prize options for you, Mike.
You got a shot.
Ironic shot glass, Mike. This is 2012 induction, Barry Larkin and Monsanto.
Oh.
This shot glass is kind of special to me. It's the first time I'd ever been to Cooperstown.
Yeah.
Gave a presentation. So you can have this or a book of I Really Didn't Say That, Everything I Said by Yogi Berra.
Oh, wow.
Your choice.
Well, we're Steve. I think I had to be over there.
Well, there's two of you, I can
Sure.
get. What you want? What you want? You want the shot? Go ahead.
Gotta go with who he is.
Okay, and again, who had second place? You had 14? Mike, you had 14? Eight, okay, all right. Well, it doesn't matter. Allison? Jimmy, Jimmy, can you hold up that book again? The book, the Kid Caminiti book? As a reminder, next month, February 20th, Dan Good will come and talk to us about Ken Caminiti's life. And this is a great book, Playing Through the Pain. I hope to see you next month. I hope to see some of you next week on Saturday at Astros Fan Fest. And February 4th, we're still planning the luncheon, probably at, ironically, St. Arnold's Brewery. We got the little sign-up sheet around here somewhere. Yeah, I think I have it.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I have it.
Yeah, I have
Please, there, go
a
ahead.
demonstration with our umpire.
Extra credit for the umpire.
This is something happened in the game. Somebody on the other team hit a ball down by their foot. And it rolled out there. Jumped up like that. And the umpire called the foul ball. They subsequently got on and they hit and they scored after. If the ball didn't hit his foot, we went out, threw him out, and it was third out. So I went out in between innings and I said, "Did you see that ball hit his foot?" He said, "No, Larry, you can't, it happens so fast, you can't see a ball hit a guy's foot." I said, "Well, then, how do you know?" He said, "Well, you have to go by the hitter's reaction." I said, "Good, then I'm gonna tell all our hitters." So, jump up and hold your foot, it'll be a foul ball.
Bruce Scourin always used to put double shoe polish on it. But to defend the umpire or to criticize the umpire, you came out initially on the call.
No, I didn't. I waited until in between the innings.
If I'd have been the plate, you'd have come out. I'd asked for those first.
Well, that would be a first.